Good morning, everybody. So this morning we're going to be working on the Zentangle basic steps. So we're going to be creating a Zentangle. So this was a Zentangle created by one of my students a few years ago, and I think she did a really excellent job using some negative space in here and creating this bird and having some value. But she did a fantastic job of making all these different little patterns. Some of them she kept fairly simple, and some of them she did some fairly complex things, but she did a lot of value blending and all kinds of different stuff. So I really like it. So I'm going to show you step by step how to do that. Now I do have this available in OneNote for you. So if you want to specifically read through, I've got some longer descriptions on the side here. I've got picture descriptions for you in the middle, and then a quick reference if you're like, well, I kind of remember, but I want to make sure I get all the steps. So the first step is we're basically going to be creating kind of our square. So you can use any kind of paper you want, but you're going to draw 4 dots about 3 inches apart to form a square. So I'm just going to take this piece of paper that I folded in half so it shows on the screen, and I'm going to do doot, 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 like that. So I've got 4 little dots. Now the next part on here is draw 4 lines that create a border connecting the dots. So I've shown different kinds of ways that you can do it. Now you can just do straight lines all the way around and just make a square, but that one's going to be the least interesting. But you can make loops, you can make waves, you can make zigzags, however you want. Okay, so now for me, I think I'm going to do that to begin with. Maybe I'll have a more simple side like that. And then maybe this one, I'm gonna have it come outside like this. And then maybe I'm gonna go wee like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll make that pointy. There. So I've made this crazy shape just by connecting the lines to my dots, right? So the next part is divide up the inside space with shapes and lines. So you can see here, like I use a circle, I use recognizable shapes. So I use a rectangle and a circle. You can do a heart, or you could just add on extra lines, or you could do a combo of those. And you can have some of the shapes break the outside area. So maybe for me, I'm gonna do a square right here. So I'm gonna have mine break the outside edge, so it's gonna come out. And then maybe I wanna do a circle right here, like this. Our main goal here is to divide up the spaces. And now I'm gonna do a couple lines. I'm just gonna draw a line, and I'm gonna draw another line. The main thing to kind of avoid is just doing an X straight in the middle. So the one thing to avoid is if you're doing something super simple, avoid just doing an X, because that ends up looking really kind of boring. So you want to make sure that you've got lots of different little sections that are going to get filled with your patterns. So once you have your sections, then you're going to fill in each section with a different texture pattern and vary the size and the density. So that just means that you want to have some areas that have big things and some areas that have small things. So remember our 6 basic shapes that we had. We had the grid, the scales, the stripes, the bubbles, the starburst, and the organic. So if I'm going to start with stripes, and I'm going to do a small stripe. Now for the sake of time, I'm just going to keep this fairly simple. But remember, you want to spend some time and make those complex patterns. So I think I'm going to do a couple small stripes, and maybe I'm going to do this as a small stripe too. But then for the density, what I'm talking about there is I've got small stripes here, but now maybe in one of these other areas, I'm going to make a big stripe. So I think right in this area, I'm going to do a large stripe. So that means that I've changed the density. So what I mean by that is just I made this one bigger. So even though it's still just a stripe, because I made this one bigger, it looks different from that one. And maybe I'll do another large stripe up here. And remember, you want to make sure that you're making these into complex designs and that you're filling the whole space. And see, like right here, I avoided that space because this is a separate little area. So I've used stripes. Now I think I'm gonna do a grid. Maybe I'll do a really small grid in here. And then I could add in something else. Maybe I'll add in another grid over here. Small grid. Boop, 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 boop. And remember to make these nice and complex. Then let's see, on this one, I think I'm gonna do bubbles. So maybe I'll fill in with some bubbles like this. I could make them little swirls if I wanted to, like the little bubbles could be swirls. That could add some visual interest. Okay, so I added in, let's see, I've got a grid, I've got stripes, I've got bubbles. Maybe I'll do some scales now. So remember, you know, I've got small and large, so maybe I'll make these a medium. And you can make your scales go whichever direction you want. Boop, boop. Just continue your pattern. And like I said, once you've made these more complex, a lot of times if you're like, oh, my drawing looks uneven, go slow and steady, it'll be more even. Also, once you color it in, and if you've done the things to make your designs more complex, then you won't even notice. So now I've got that. Let's see, what else do I got? Oh, I could do a starburst. So maybe for this one, I'm not actually going to draw out the starburst, but I'm going to do a combination of that starburst pattern or idea and the scale idea, and I'm going to make it look kind of like a flower. But that counts as a starburst because it's in that starburst shape. So I'm going to add that in. And notice how I'm filling this whole section. Okay, so I've got that, and I've got like 2 spots left. So maybe I'm gonna add, let's see, maybe I'll add in, I'm gonna add in another scale over here, but I'm gonna make it go this direction. But this is your opportunity. Be as creative as you can. Try to think of all kinds of, you know, different patterns and stuff. That's why we did all the pattern work earlier, so that you could really make these super nice and feel really good about it at the end. Okay, and now I think I'm gonna do one more stripe. I'm actually gonna make it match the stripe at the top, just because I think that would be cool. So now that I have that, now I would, like I said, I would want to add in more visual interest. So remember making those 3 small changes, make these look more complex. And then you can also add value by filling some areas in darkly. So like this one here, this was originally a stripe pattern, and then I filled in part of it. Or like right here, I filled in part of the pattern. So you could go through and add some value in some areas. And then an optional part is to add a color scheme. So making sure to super saturate your colored pencils. That just means color it in really hard. So that's what this student did here, right? She used colored pencils, and she super saturated her colors. And you can see how she attempted some blending in here and everything, and she's got some blending going in there as well. So you can take something that looks fairly simple and you can add more to it to make it look more and more complex. Oh, the last one was organic. So you can always add in little organic things onto the edges here too. And remember, like groups of 3 tend to look really nice. So I could add on some organic stuff onto the edges, and groupings of 3 tend to look really nice. All right, so go and try making your own Zentangles. Remember to add in the extra patterns and stuff, the extra 3 strips into your patterns to make them look super complex, and you know, enjoy it. Spend some time, make it look amazing, and I'll see you in a little bit. All right, thanks everybody.